Hey everyone. So I'm going to show how to go about printing your book on Mixam, which is what we're using for this. So I'm going to mixam.com. You can all do that on your own. And then we're going to print under a magazine. I think magazine and booklet are the same thing. So either one, but just click magazines. And then it pulls up this whole kind of menu here where you can see the size of your book. I think we've looked at this before, how many copies you want, color, etc. So I've come up with an example document here that I'm going to work with for today to show you things. So here I have 44 pages in 23 spreads, and I know that the cover, I have the cover and the inner cover. So 4 of those pages are cover pages. How Mixam thinks about it is you add a cover, it says 4 additional sides. Basically, just to remember, the cover is a different material. So there's the outside, which is kind of your front cover and your back cover. So that's the outside of the book. And the inner page, which is also still in that same material that's been added on to the paper, that's your inner cover. So it considers that 1 side, 2 sides, and then the 3 sides, 4 sides. Okay, so in that case, I have 40 pages. So each thing is a side in Mixam. It's considered sides, not pages. I'm not entirely sure why, but I have 40 sides, and then I have a cover, add a cover. So if you add a cover, it costs a little more money. Just to see here, if you go to 1 copy, it comes down a little bit. But if you add a cover, that you get to have it be a different texture and a heavier text weight, cover weight. That means that when you hold it, there'll be kind of a difference between the paper quality of the inside of the book and the cover, which is kind of standard. So here you could select between color and grayscale. So a lot of you, I think color would make the most sense, but I think, for some of you like Sophia, Anika, you could go with grayscale unless you want to use color somewhere, just because if you're not using color, you can just go black and white. It costs like $2 less or $1 less, so it's not a big difference. And then here you can go and kind of refine everything. So first we got to figure out the size of your book. So I go back here to my inDesign and I can see file, document setup. I can just remind myself what my page size was. So mine was 7 by 9 in this test. So I can go here, see if they have 7 by 9. If they don't, I can just go and create a custom size up here and say 7 by 9. Okay. Then as I go, I can choose other options. So 80-pound text. So this is the weight of the paper. If you do 100-pound text, it'll be heavier. I'm going to keep it to 80 pounds. I think sometimes when it's too heavy, it's harder to turn the pages. And then you can choose the cover, how much weight you want. So even if you chose 80 pounds again here, because it's cover weight, it still feel thicker. I'm just going to go to 100. Why not have more contrast between the two? And then you can also choose if you want the paper to be satin gloss uncoated. I wish they had examples of what those all look like. So in the future, when you work some more on, when you have kind of bigger projects, you can order a test, like a series of booklets that they send you that kind of show you what things feel like. So you get a sense of things. Like you can actually hold the paper in your hands before you choose what you want. I'm going to go for uncoated paper for the inside. So then the inside will just be like what you're used to, kind of not slick. Like when you hold printer paper, it's not slick. It doesn't shine at all or anything like that. And then you can use gloss or whatever you want for the cover. That's up to you, or uncoated. So here we go. Mine's gotten to $30, so it's not very cheap, but I think that, you know, for a project that we don't get to be in person and you don't have anything kind of physical from this class, I think it's nice to have at least one thing that you have that will end up in a real physical object. And then here you can also choose between staple bound and perfect bound. And perfect bound means you'll have an actual spine of your book, so it'll be like a flat. So if you put it in a bookshelf, it'll be flat, and you could have the title of the book there on the edge. Whereas if you use staple bound, it'll just be like kind of a magazine or like a little booklet. So it's up to you. Both work quite well. There's also Wiro. I'm not going to recommend Wiro. Basically, what Wiro is like, Wiro bound. It's like a wire. Hold on, let me just pull a picture. So a wire bound book looks like this. So it has kind of this, wire. You know what I mean. The thing with that is that it's a little harder to turn the pages because every time you have to kind of go around the whole circle. So I don't know. I think that it's I just don't recommend it. So I would go either staple or perfect bound. So let's do perfect so I can kind of show how I'd go about doing that for those of you who want to do perfect bound. So we're kind of set up here. Last thing I'll say is if you happen to have the wrong number, I think normally in perfect bound you can have any number, but I think they must actually first staple them or something before binding them. So they have a set number of sides you need to have, so you can't just have like 33, as you can see. That's also because it's how paper works, right? When you fold paper, it has to be folded to, you know, certain, like you can't just cut a page or it'll just be loose, even though when it's perfect bound it's going to be glued together. But basically if you have like one or two off, just readjust your design. As you know, in our kind of setup we have these options for extra pages, like, you know, decorative pages or extra kind of informational pages. So if you happen to have that, just either remove one, like figure out kind of what works for you, either add or remove. So for example, if you had you know, a full spread that was decorative, you could just have this and the decorative, the inner cover just be this page, and this one would be decorative here, but you could cut this, for example. So, or you could add it if you're missing it. So just kind of figure out what works for you, and once you're ready, you can go ahead and click add to cart, and then so I have kind of proceed and upload files. So what it's going to do is going to create kind of a pending order, as you can see here, pending order, but my order isn't confirmed up until I've like uploaded everything and put my credit card in there. So once you've paid for it, it's happy with you. Okay, so now that you have everything set up in your Mixam, you're going to go in InDesign and kind of fix that. So as we can see at the end, you have a spine. It's actually really, really skinny because your book is not very thick. So you might not even be able to put any text on there. If your book is larger because you have more pages, you might be able to do that. But I think for a lot of you, it'll just end up being like making sure that it goes over the spine. So we'll do that at the end. But the first thing we want to do is go into our InDesign and then add bleed. So what bleed is as you can see here at the very bottom of your Mixam, you have a lot of information. What file type can I upload? You want to upload a PDF. How do you do it? You know, if you have multiple files, how do you name them? So if you want to upload your cover separately from the rest, you can do file 1, file 2, you know, etc. So it's kind of telling you how to do things. But one thing that's really important, and this is the case whenever you go to print anything, is you have to add bleed. And it tells you how much bleed to add. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. So you could type it in, but I'm going to copy it. And then here in my InDesign, I'm going to go and add bleed. So the way to do that is you go to File, Document Setup, and then here you can see bleed is in kind of the setup phase. So I'm just going to paste that in, and it's automatically adding it to all of them. So you can also type it in 0.125 inches. Then I can click OK. So what that's done is it's added this red line across around all of your pages. What that's telling you is it's basically giving the printer a tiny bit of leeway in case when they trim it, so when they print something, they print a paper and then they go and cut it with like a sharp blade. But you know, a blade can be off by a couple tiny millimeters or whatever. So if that happens, you end up having like a tiny blank space, which doesn't look so good. So they want to have at least this amount that they feel like we can mess up by this amount, basically, and we will still be okay. So for a lot of you, that will be fine. You can kind of see here, you know, okay, if I'm Eva, I want to make sure I have this going all the way across. And if you have type that's like kind of supposed to go all the way to the edge, for example, this X here, one idea could be to make sure you have the bleed. So like if it trims, if you really want to make sure it goes all the way to the edge, you could kind of color in adding, you know, let's say you'd have to be very precise, but you can kind of add in, here's where my box would go so that it goes all the way to the outside. This way, if they trim it, even if it's a little bit off, you won't have kind of a line of white space. So you'd have to go through and do that in quite a few places. So I don't know if it's up to you if you want to, you know, really do that, but I think it would kind of give you this assurance that what you have will not be, will look kind of in the way you have it set up. You could also just push your text out more, but I'm not sure that is a good, you know, it might change your design a little bit too much. So it's up to you to see if you can do that without kind of interfering with your design. I don't think it's the end of the world if it's really like a huge hassle for you to fix that. But I think if you can manage it without it being too much work, I definitely recommend it. So it'll depend on all of you. You know, you all have different designs, so that will be different for everyone. Okay, so another thing that we have to do now, we have our bleed set up. Sorry, I should say also, especially if you have, you know, here I had my backdrop on one of my pages. So I had like this black rectangle backdrop here. And as you can see how I had it, it wasn't going all the way to the edges. So I can just hold Command and drag up, and then just let it go beyond. It doesn't matter if it's exactly to this red line, it just needs to go beyond. Oh, okay, I didn't do this side, so I just make sure it's going all the way across. And so go through and kind of make sure, you know, if you hold Option and Shift and drag, it kind of makes everything proportionally larger. So you can go ahead and do that on all of your pages. So this one I had already done it for. Okay, so another thing that you then want to check. So then I have done that for all my pages. I had added this line in the center so that when I upload it to Miro, I could easily see, you know, it's kind of off center, I could easily see that. So you want to make sure before you go to print, you remove this line, because otherwise it's going to go and try and print this line in the center. It's going to mess things up for you. So I had applied it to my master page. I don't know if any of you have done that, but just in case, double check. So I'm going in my pages, and then I'm going to a master pages, just kind of dragging and deleting. Now I know I have removed that stroke. My file is ready. Okay, a couple last things to check is your errors. So here at the bottom of my document, I can see that it says I have 7 errors. So I'm dragging this up here, 7 errors, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click in this kind of downward menu, click Pre-Flight Panel. what this does is it pops up this little box, toolkit for your all your kind of errors. So if I click again, I drill down, it tells me what the error is. In this case, it's overset text frame. If I click on the little link at the end here, it will show me where in the document that is. So all of mine are the same error, but some things that might happen, especially in the future, or if you've pasted anything in there, that's an image. I don't think any of you have images at this point since that wasn't part of this project, but that might be in the next one. You could have kind of a link that's broken, so you would have to go through and relink that. So often in InDesign, when you place something in, if you move the file while you're working, so for example, you saved an image in one folder and then you move the folder, it will no longer know where that image is, and you have to go and tell it, relink it. But I'm not sure that any of you will have that issue in this case. But here I click on the 7, it tells me, oh, you have overset text. So what that's telling me is here's this little plus sign that I had extra text that I didn't, that's not visible. So it's not happy about that. Okay, so in this case, I just added fake text, and some of you just double check whether this was, so I can go ahead and delete the extra text. Oh, and I can align it to my border. So some of you might have those, either you accidentally cut off some text, in which case you would make sure to add it back in. But if it's like you didn't actually want it to be there and the text is actually down here, it's just that you didn't take the time to remove it, you can kind of click the plus sign, move that over here, so it kind of creates a new text box, and then just delete the text from inside here, and then again, just do it every time until, or I could just open this text box up and delete everything that I don't want. So you want to make sure that before you print, there are no errors. Oh, I'm fixing things. Okay, text frame 10. All right, so here I had done this thing where I broke it up. I'm just going to accept this one as an error. Okay, I already said there it shouldn't have no errors, but here, because I have this hyphen that's kind of created by this setup that I've done, I'm going to say and accept this error that it's okay. So this text frame 10, I'm going to let it be. So these two errors are both text frames on page 10. Then I can go to page 36. Okay, it's the same thing again. So I know that these errors that are still here, I actually want to keep them. So it's okay to keep the errors in this case. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to show is in InDesign, before we upload, is adding the spine. So some of you have words that go across the front and back cover. That kind of complicates things a little bit. So what we're going to do is create a new document. So I'm going to go create new document, and then make sure that your document is the exact same size as your current one. So here, 7 by 9 inches. Okay, and I'm making 3 pages, facing pages, so you can fix that. I'm going to remove the margins here. Make sure you remove all margins, because it's going to be such a tiny thing that we make that we don't want any margins. And then make sure you do have the bleed in there. So again, I'll go back, copy it from here, Mixam, and add the bleed. And it should, if these are connected, it should just do it all at once. Then I will click create. Okay, so then I have this new kind of setup with my pages. So this might be a little bit, go slow, this might be a little bit like confusing or stressful, but just, go slowly, watch slowly, it'll be fine. Okay, so here I have, under pages on the right, I have I can see my pages. What I'm going to do is control click, which is right clicking, and then I'm going to uncheck allow document pages to shuffle. So I uncheck that. So I have to click specifically on the pages. So as you can see, it's unchecked. Now I can drag this page, the first page, and drag it in between these other two. This allows your document to be 3 pages. So if you had your pages shuffle, it would just kind of reshuffle which one's on the front. So in this case, is force them to be next to one another. Okay, now I have this tool here, page tool, which we haven't used yet, and it allows you to kind of control each page separately. Here, instead of 7 inches, I'm going to go and look at my spine size, which is here 0.157 inch, and I'm going to copy that and paste that in. So one thing I want to say is, depending on how many pages you have in your book, the spine is going to be a different size, right? Because it's calculating how thick your book is going to be. So in our case, we have a book of 40 pages. It's a very thin book still, so the spine is very, very tiny. So make sure that when you are uploading yours, you're not just copying the size I have, but checking in your Mixam at the bottom what the width is that is your specific book. So if you have more pages, it might be a little bit more, fewer pages, less. Okay, then I can put that here in the width. So using again my page tool, I can change the width to being 0.157. So if you had margins, it might not let you do that, so make sure you remove the margins. Okay, so now, if you're someone who has things going across the sides, I'm going to just go back, copy I'm going to copy the cover exactly as I had it designed, so you could do Command A. So let's add things so we can imagine what that could be like for somebody else who has things going across the sides. Okay, so then I'll copy that, and then I will go over here and paste in place. File, or edit, paste in place. Okay, so now we have this. So remember, the page on the right is your right cover, and the page on the left is your left cover. Okay, so here you could either go and figure out what your back cover was and copy that, paste that in, or wherever you're at, I don't know, you could be designing your cover here, whatever. So you have your cover, but you also can see kind of where it's sitting on the spine. So, okay. Now that I've set it up, knowing where kind of things sit on the spine, so you might have readjusted things a little bit to see where your cover, based on adding the spine, I'm actually going to go back. I think the simplest way to do this is going to go back into our main document and paste it back in. So it's a little bit kind of, a lot of steps, but I think it's just easier to paste it in all at once. And we'll add the spine at the very end separately. So what I do here, copy everything that's supposed to go on the front cover, even if it's like only a tiny amount, I just copy all of that. So I'm doing Command C or right click, copy. Then going back here to the top to my top cover, deleting all of that, just because maybe I've moved things around. And then again, right click, paste in place. Okay, so I know that's exactly where it was on this side. And then again, same thing on the back. I'm going to take everything, including some that are also on the front. So I'm just anything that's remotely on the back cover, copying that. So I'll just do right click, copy, Command C, and then going all the way to the back, and then deleting what I had here, right click, paste in place. Now I know that this is exactly where it was on here. Then I'll export this spine separately at the end, so I'll just show you that. Okay. I don't know what's going on. Okay. So now I'm pretty happy with what I have. I have my cover figured out. I have everything set up properly. I'm going to go ahead and export. So I will do File, Export. So that's also Command E, which is what I usually do. And then I've already done a test, so I'll just save it again. Mixam example, save, replace. So in my case, I already had one. So, and then I'm going to go ahead and say I want all pages included. So all pages, and I'm going to export as pages in this case. There's also the option to export as spreads, but we're going to export as pages. And then before you hit export, go into marks and bleeds and make sure that you've clicked on bleed marks. Okay, and yeah, and then also actually click use document bleed settings. What that's going to do is it's also going to export the bleed. So make sure you're going in your export, so first you have all pages, and then compression, nothing. Marks and bleeds, include bleed marks, use document bleed settings. Okay? Then you can click export. Okay, so now I'm going to also, while we're at it, export the spine. So here I'm going to do Command E, which is the shortcut. I'm going to call it Mixam spine. And here, instead of exporting everything, I'm just going to export the second page. So if you click range 2, so that you can see I had already done that, that's only this page, the second page. So it only export the center area. Then you can click export. So let's take a look. So if I look at my example PDF, I have, you can see these extra marks. Those are telling you where the bleed is. Don't worry about the marks. And then I have the spine, which only has whatever little amounts were in. But that way, because I've exported it in this way, and I've just copy pasted exactly, I know that it's exactly in the location that I want and that all the pages will connect. Okay, so now on to uploading. I'm just going to click upload files, and I'm going to just select my document and hit enter. And as you can see, it says processing can take up to 15 minutes, so it takes some time. I don't think it'll take that long. And we'll see. And I might as well just click upload the spine while I'm at it. All right, so as you can see, it's uploaded everything, and it's kind of smart. It knows where things goes, and it knows that this is my spine because the size was exactly the size of the spine it wanted. So this is the easiest way to do it because it kind of automatically auto-populates it for you. Now I can do preview, make sure that everything is as I want it. So just before you print anything, check everything. Is it all in the correct location? So kind of go through all your pages. Just want to see, kind of make sure that everything's correctly, the correct pages are next to one another, etc. Okay. You can also click proof, which will generate like a PDF. It's a little bit more in depth. Okay. So, I don't know if I should wait for this proof or not. Okay, then we can go back into our details, in which you can put, your billing address, delivery address, all the kind of practical information, payment, etc. So basically, once you've done all this, you're done, and you're ready to send to print. But if there are issues, it may tell you fix something. It may raise issues if there's something wrong with it. But I don't think, usually it's like the image is too small or whatever, so there are sometimes issues. I just don't think that's going to be the case for us because this book is all type. It should be fairly straightforward. Okay, so I hope this is helpful. I think that you have everything you need, but do write to me if you encounter issues that I haven't covered here in this video. Let me know. I think you should be fine with your final sending to print, and yeah, I think that's it for today. All right, good luck everyone, and I'll see you on Friday.